What if freedom is not something you achieve, but something you uncover by stopping? What if all your efforts to become free are the very chains that bind you? What if every technique you practice, every goal you pursue, every step you take toward liberation is actually a step away from the freedom that's already here? Right now, as you listen to these words, you are free, but you don't feel it. You don't experience it because you're too busy doing, too busy becoming, too busy trying to get somewhere other than where you already are. Freedom is not in the distance. It's not at the end of a long journey of self-improvement. It's not waiting for you after you've done enough, learned enough, practiced enough. Freedom is what remains when you stop doing, when you stop trying, when you finally rest in what you've always been. The paradox is profound. The less you do to find freedom, the more freedom reveals itself. The less you effort to become liberated, the more liberation flows through your being. The less you chase what you think you lack, the more you discover you never lacked anything at all. We live in a culture of constant doing. From the moment we wake up until we fall asleep, we're engaged in endless activity. Not just physical activity, but mental activity, emotional activity, spiritual activity. We do meditation to become peaceful. We do therapy to become healthy. We do yoga to become flexible. We do affirmations to become positive. Always doing, always becoming, never simply being. But what if this very compulsion to do is what keeps you from experiencing what you're seeking? What if the constant activity of trying to improve yourself, fix yourself, liberate yourself, is the very thing that maintains the illusion of bondage? Watch your mind right now. See how it immediately wants to do something with these words. It wants to understand them, analyze them, agree or disagree with them, remember them, apply them. Even now, it's probably thinking about how to use this information to become more free. Do you see the trap? Even the desire for freedom becomes another doing, another project, another way of postponing the recognition of what's already here. Freedom is not a goal to achieve. It's not a state to attain. It's not a condition that results from the right combination of actions. Freedom is what you are when you're not trying to be anything else. It's what remains when all the doing stops. It's the space in which all doing appears. Think of a bird in flight. Is the bird doing freedom? Is it practicing liberation? Or is it simply expressing its nature? The bird doesn't try to be free. It is free. This freedom is not separate from what it is. And when it rests, when it stops flying, when it simply sits on a branch, is it any less free? You are like this bird. Your essential nature is freedom itself. You don't need to do anything to become free because you are freedom pretending to be in bondage. You don't need to practice liberation because you are liberation playing the game of seeking liberation. But the pretense is so convincing. The game is so absorbing. You've been doing so much for so long that you've forgotten how to simply be. You've been trying so hard to become something that you've lost touch with what you already are. Krishnamurti spoke of this when he observed, "Freedom comes when you see the futility of seeking freedom." Can you feel the truth of this? Every effort to become free implies that you're not already free. Every technique to achieve liberation reinforces the belief that liberation is absent. Every practice to attain freedom strengthens the illusion that freedom is somewhere else, sometime else, someone else's experience but not yours. This doesn't mean you should do nothing in life. It doesn't mean you should become passive or inactive. It means recognizing that your essential nature, your true being, your deepest reality, is already completely free regardless of what you do or don't do. When you realize this, when you truly understand that freedom is not dependent on your actions, then action becomes play instead of effort. Movement becomes dance instead of struggle. Life becomes expression instead of pursuit. If this perspective is opening something fresh in your understanding, consider subscribing to join our community exploring the profound simplicity of being. Notice how effortful your life has become, how much you do each day in the pursuit of happiness, peace, success, love, fulfillment. You wake up and immediately start doing. You check your phone, make your plans, set your intentions, practice your routines. All day long, doing. Even your relaxation becomes something you do. Even your rest becomes a technique you practice. But what if all this doing is optional? What if happiness, peace, love, fulfillment What if all of these are already present, already available, already here, and your constant doing is just distracting you from noticing them? It's like being in a beautiful garden and being so busy planting flowers that you never see the ones that are already blooming all around you. It's like being surrounded by music and being so focused on learning to play an instrument that you never hear the symphony that's already playing. The more you do to find what you're seeking, the more you reinforce the belief that it's not already here. The harder you try to become free, the more solid the prison of seeking becomes. The more techniques you practice to achieve peace, the more you confirm that peace is absent. This is the spiritual trap that catches almost everyone. We turn freedom into a goal, peace into a project, enlightenment into an achievement. We create elaborate systems for becoming what we already are. We develop sophisticated methods for finding what we've never lost. But freedom cannot be earned, cannot be deserved, cannot be achieved through right action or right thinking or right anything. Freedom simply is. It's the ground of your being. It's what you are before you do anything, think anything, or become anything. When a flower blooms, is it doing blooming? Or is blooming simply the natural expression of what the flower is? When water flows downhill, is it working to flow? Or is flowing simply water's nature when obstacles are removed? Your freedom is like this. It doesn't require your effort to exist. It simply requires the removal of the belief that it's absent. It simply requires the stopping of the search that confirms its absence. It simply requires the recognition that what you're seeking is what you are. This recognition doesn't come through more doing. It comes through the courage to do less. It comes through the willingness to stop long enough to notice what's already here. It comes through the radical act of being instead of becoming. But the mind resists this. The mind wants to do something about what it hears. It wants to turn this understanding into a practice, this recognition into a technique, this freedom into another project. Even now, it might be thinking, okay, so I need to do less. How do I do that? What's the method for not having methods? Do you see the absurdity? The mind cannot understand freedom because the mind is a doing mechanism. It's designed to solve, to fix, to improve, to achieve. But freedom is not a problem to be solved. It's not a situation to be improved. It's not a goal to be achieved. Freedom is what notices the mind's doing without being caught in it. And then something shifts. In a moment of complete exhaustion from all the seeking, in an instant of total surrender of the search, in the space between one effort and the next, something extraordinary happens. You realize you've been free all along. You realize that every moment you spent trying to become free, you were free. Every effort to achieve liberation was made by liberation itself. Every technique you practiced to find peace was peace playing at being lost and found. This is the great awakening. Not the awakening that comes at the end of a long journey, but the awakening that reveals there was never any journey. Not the freedom you finally achieve, but the freedom that recognizes it was never bound. Not the peace you finally find, but the peace that realizes it was never lost. It's like waking up from a dream where you were searching for your house, only to find you were in your house the entire time. It's like stopping to catch your breath during a long run, only to discover you were already at your destination. It's like frantically looking for your glasses while they're sitting on your nose. The laughter that arises from this recognition is not ordinary laughter. It's the laughter of relief, the laughter of absurdity, the laughter of love recognizing itself in the most unlikely places. You laugh at the cosmic joke of seeking what you are. You laugh at the beautiful futility of trying to become what you've never not been. Krishnamurti often spoke of this humor. The moment you see the absurdity of your seeking, seeking stops. And in that stopping, in that moment of seeing the joke, freedom reveals itself not as an attainment but as what's always been here, patiently waiting for the search to exhaust itself. But this is not the end of activity. This is the beginning of a different kind of activity. Action that arises from fullness rather than lack. Movement that comes from overflow rather than need. Doing that emerges from being rather than becoming. When you're no longer doing things to become free, action becomes effortless. When you're no longer trying to achieve peace, everything you do expresses peace. When you're no longer seeking happiness, joy flows naturally through whatever you happen to be doing. The bird doesn't fly to become free. It flies because it's free. The flower doesn't bloom to achieve beauty. It blooms because beauty is its nature. The river doesn't flow to reach the ocean. It flows because flowing is what water does when it's unobstructed. From this recognition, life becomes art instead of effort. Every action becomes creative expression rather than goal-seeking behavior. Every moment becomes an opportunity for freedom to know itself rather than an opportunity to become more free. You stop doing meditation and start being meditation. You stop practicing presence and start being present. You stop working on yourself and start being yourself. The doing continues, but the doer who was separate from the doing dissolves. What remains is pure activity without someone trying to get somewhere through the activity. This is true freedom. Not the freedom from something or the freedom to do something, but the freedom that you are. The freedom that doesn't come and go with circumstances. The freedom that doesn't depend on what you do or don't do. The freedom that is the very essence of what you are. Share this recognition with someone who might be exhausted from seeking, for in that sharing, freedom recognizes itself in yet another apparent seeker who was never separate from what they sought. So here you are, at the end of these words, at the beginning of not doing. What will you do with this understanding? How will you practice not practicing? How will you achieve non-achievement? How will you become someone who realizes they never needed to become anyone? The mind wants to turn even this into a method. It wants to make doing less into a new kind of doing. It wants to transform non-seeking into a more sophisticated form of seeking. Even now, it might be creating a plan for how to stop planning, a technique for abandoning techniques, a practice of not practicing. But can you simply stop? Can you rest right here, right now, without turning the rest into another project? Can you be free in this moment without making freedom into a future goal? This is not about becoming lazy or inactive. This is not about withdrawal from life or responsibility. This is about discovering what you are when you're not trying to be anything else. This is about experiencing what's here when you're not trying to get somewhere else. Right now, before you do anything else, before you plan your next step on your spiritual journey, before you decide how to apply these insights, what are you? Not what you think you are, not what you're trying to become, not what you hope to achieve, but what are you right now in this space between thoughts, in this moment of not doing? This is freedom. This is what you've been seeking. This is what you are when you stop long enough to notice what's always been here. Not the freedom you achieve through effort, but the freedom that recognizes itself when effort stops. Not the liberation you earn through practice, but the liberation that remains when the practitioner dissolves. The less you do to find it, the more obvious it becomes. The less you try to become it, the more clearly you see you already are it. The less you effort to achieve it, the more naturally it expresses itself through whatever you happen to be doing. This is not a teaching to remember. This is a reality to recognize. This is not a concept to understand. This is your nature to embody, not through doing, but through the exquisite simplicity of being what you've always been. Sit quietly if you wish, or continue moving through your day. Dance if you feel moved to dance, or rest if rest is what's calling. The freedom you are is not dependent on what you do. It's what does whatever gets done. It's what remains whether you're active or still, engaged or withdrawn, seeking or not seeking. In this recognition, even seeking becomes okay. Even doing becomes a celebration. Even effort becomes play. Because now you know. Now you see. Now you understand that none of it was ever necessary for you to be what you already are. The great secret is this simple: you are already free. You have always been free. You will always be free. The only thing that ever changed was your recognition of this fact. And that recognition doesn't require doing anything. It simply requires the willingness to stop doing long enough to notice what's already here. In this stopping, in this not doing, in this profound rest from the search, freedom recognizes itself as what you are. Not as an experience you have, but as what has all experiences. Not as a state you enter, but as what enters all states. Not as something you become, but as what you've never not been. If this exploration into the freedom that comes from doing less has resonated in the depths of your being, we warmly invite you to subscribe and join our community of those discovering the profound rest of being. Share in the comments any moments of stopping that have revealed what was always already free, and consider passing this reflection to someone who might be ready to discover that what they seek is what they are when they stop seeking. Together, in our collective rest from the search, We embody the freedom that was never lost and celebrate the beautiful joke of having looked everywhere for what we already were.